Welcome to Utter Hoops. I am so happy to be here today because we are going to be breaking down the end of Arizona's game at BYU the other night. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Arizona holds a second half lead. They're getting half court trapped. Koa Pete makes this little dish, and Mo Crevis with the dunk. That's going to give the Wildcats a 19-point lead, their biggest of the game, with just under 11 minutes to go. So on the next 6 possessions, BYU is going to hit 4 threes. So let's go ahead and walk through each of those. The first is from Kennard Davis. Davis was on a shooting slump coming into the second half of this game, but he's going to go ahead and hit a couple of threes here in the second half. Now, we're going to have a dribble handoff here, essentially, as a little toss and screen from Abdullah Ahmed to Kennard Davis here. Couple things to kind of pick out at this point. Mo Crevis is up covering the screen. He's usually not going to be at the level of the screen. He plays drop coverage mostly. And that's going to indicate that we really need Anthony Del Orso to come over this screen to be able to force Davis to drive this into Crevis. Now, I'm also going to point out Jaden Bradley, who's up towards the action right now, but he's going to end up spinning back. And we'll show why that matters later in the play. As this pass comes to Davis and he comes off this screen here, Del Orso crashes into Ahmed, tries to spin to go under. And because Crevis isn't at the level of the screen, he's not really able to get up and be able to affect that shot. But again, let's watch Bradley. Right, Bradley turns his head. Now, here is the time that you'd really like Bradley to be able to kind of stunt into this area here and make Davis kind of think more, am I going to be open? Should I swing it to Rob Wright over here in the corner? But he's got his head turned here. And yeah, Davis comes off this screen, is able to do a little bit of a step back, and he nails this one here. So 2 possessions later, Abdullah Ahmed has fouled out. So Arizona has, BYU has now basically played a 5-player lineup that everyone can move. Most of the guys are not red level shooters. They can all shoot it a little bit. Debanza is now the biggest guy on the floor. So the Wildcats have taken Crevis off the floor and they have put in Tobe Awaka in, presumably so you could blitz or hedge or even switch all 5 across the board here. What BYU is going to do to adjust by that is they're just going to have Debanza go hunt Anthony Del Orso. So they just keep setting screens until they're able to get the ISO on Del Orso here. And the Wildcats bring help. They are able to kick out, and Alexei Kostic hits that 3 there. Now, I think you do need to bring help here on Debanza. He's got an advantage on Del Orso. But when you see this over here, everything's overloaded away from the ball, right? The help needs to come from the bottom side, from Awaka. Here, Bradley can sink down, and Karchenkov can be splitting 2 on the far side. He'll X out to whichever guy the ball gets skipped to, and Bradley will take the other one. That, I believe, is the way that the help should come from. As we run this through a little further, what you're going to see is Awaka's there, right? Awaka's stepping over. Del Orso's walling up. You've got this covered about as well as you want to, but you can already see that Koa Pete is starting to have ideas that he's going to come to the ball here, right? And as he does, that's going to mean that really Karchenkov has to be splitting to his man and to Kostic up here if Koa Pete's going to go at this ball. Now, again, I would rather Pete not go double this one here. We'll see. Both guys kind of don't do exactly what I would hope for there. Pete's coming after the ball. Karchenkov is not splitting 2 there. He's still stuck down on the backside, and no one can get to Kostic to be able to hit this 3. Now, next possession is going to look pretty similar. They're hunting Anthony Del Orso here into a switch. Now, just like we talked about before, Bradley's in a great position here, right? I love where Bradley's at here, really making Debanza think, can I swing this to right really quickly to be able to hit the 3? Just kind of making him think a little bit, which again means I don't need to bring help from Karchenkov here. But same thing we talked about before. If Karchenkov is going to be coming at this one here, then it's Pete on the backside who needs to be stepped up into this area here and splitting his own man and Kostic. Ideally, I would rather have him up closer to Kostic, make Debanza throw this ball, and he might be able to, all the way across the court to Davis. to be able to make a play here. Krivas, Karchenkov comes with the help from the backside, leaving Kostic open. Pete has not moved from the spot that we had him in originally, and Kostic is able to knock down that three as well. So, two back-to-back plays where they're having trouble. The Wildcats then sub out Anthony Del Orso, right? So they've brought Braden Burries back in here. They're targeting Cole Pete in this action. He's saying, let's just put him in guard-to-guard actions over and over again, see what we get there. And eventually, Pete and Bradley are not able to negotiate this switch here. Bradley kind of falls off a little bit, and Saunders is able to get a good look at a three here. So that's 4 threes. Now, still, the lead is 14 at this point, right? After giving up the three on the other end, Pete tries to drive the lane there. Ball goes off his hip, out of bounds. Next play, ISO for AJ DeBansa. Pete's got him. DeBansa gets a little bit of a step on him, and Pete's called for that foul there. So the Wildcats take out Koa Pete at this point. They decide that they're going to be better off going with a single big against this lineup that BYU has. They bring Dwayne Aristote in, and Aristote did a nice job in the first half as well, covering AJ DeBansa. So I liked this adjustment by the Wildcats to go with this lineup here. They get the switch. This is the point of having a walk on the floor, is you're able to switch all 5. He does a good enough job here. This looks pretty good live from a different angle. His right arm's probably a little bit down. Wildcats maybe a little bit lucky to be able to get away from that one. But here's the next 2 possessions by Arizona. And remember, we just had a Pete turnover. Now we have a Bradley one-handed pass that is a turnover. And then the next one, the Cats have run the clock all the way down under 10 seconds. Not a lot has happened. They're ISOing Jaden Bradley. Bradley doesn't get a very good look there. So this is a point in the game where Arizona has kind of started to slow the game down a little bit and maybe has lost some of the flow that has gotten them the lead. On the other end, BYU go ahead and just gets an easy 3 here. This is really just very simple. And again, if you're going to have a walk in, the idea is you're going to be able to have 5 guys that it can cover out on the perimeter. That's the whole advantage of having a Walker than playing like Krivas in this spot here. This is 2 passes and an open 3. Awaka's closing out, doesn't quite get to the 3 line, hands are down. And this is another easy 3 that the Wildcats give up here. So the lead is down to 11. And to credit Karchenkov, he's not slow going around the outside. He puts the ball on the floor, drives into the paint, kicks it out the other side. Bradley with a huge fake sidestep 3 to be able to extend the lead a little bit. I really like how Karchenkov gets into the heart of the defense here. Now, after Bradley's 3, this is an Arizona timeout. So Arizona takes their first timeout of the half here with just under 5 minutes to go. But they're not making any subs. So this is really just a timeout to make sure everyone's on the same page, make sure we've got our defensive coverages set, and just calm everyone down going into the last couple of minutes of the game. It is a little bit interesting because on the next possession, there's going to be a ball out of bounds here that Karchenkov it's called off of Karchenkov. He right away is saying we should challenge this. The bench is looking to see whether we should challenge this. I think if the Cats had 3 timeouts left, that might be an opportunity that they would have had to challenge. Now, I just gave Karchenkov a lot of credit for putting the ball on the floor and getting in the heart of the defense. This isn't a terrible shot by Aristote here, but he could have done the same thing, gone right into the paint and then see what you take here. You see on the bench, Evan Manning's looking behind him. Jack Murphy's asking Karchenkov, did you touch it? They're talking to the guys in the second row. TJ Benson's turned around talking to the guys back there. They're not able to get any confirmation quick enough. And with only 2 timeouts remaining, Coach Lloyd feels like maybe it's not a good opportunity there. So, yeah, potentially a missed opportunity by the Wildcats in that spot where they could have earned an extra possession. On the other end, and this is where we'll start kind of going play by play, Karchenkov ends up drawing the foul there. And I know this is a little bit silly, but what I'm going to highlight is at this point, over on the bench here is Kadeem Mboop. And we'll go ahead and play it a little bit farther. And you'll notice he's no longer there, right? He's gone to the table to check in. He's going to sub for AJ DeBansa. They give DeBansa a little bit of rest here from 4:10 until the under 4 minute timeout. Now, when Boop goes to check in, Arizona's going to match that. And Boop is a complete non-shooter, right? So now you have an opportunity, instead of having five guys on the floor that need to be covered at the three line, you have someone on the floor who could be left. So this is up here in this top corner coming in right now. Highlight there is Mo Krivas. All right. And as we play this forward a little bit farther, I think that Kevin Young and BYU thinks Krivas is coming for Owaka. They're going to keep playing one big. You can see right here, he realizes Arizona has two bigs on the floor and I only have one. So he's trying to sub in Ibakata right here. Right. And the Wildcats get the ball, so he's not able to sub the made free throw. And this is where Arizona has just a huge mismatch that they could take advantage of. They're slow trying to bring the ball up the floor. I know they're trying to kill clock, but it's taken a long time. And you can see Owaka is now being covered by Alexei Kostic. They have a major advantage here. You can see they just kind of run clock, never really have an opportunity to be able to get the ball down into the post. It's late clock again. Now, this ends up being a Burry's travel here. I think in slow motion. I didn't think it was a travel, but all they're going to get is a long two out of that one when they had a really huge advantage. So I think that was a missed opportunity. And that's going to take us into the under 4 minute media timeout. So both teams make some subs. DeBansa's back on the floor for BYU. Krivas comes out again for Arizona. The Owaka is going to cover Kada. Now, again, having Owaka on the floor at this point in the game is to be able to be aggressive around the perimeter. I think it made total sense when BYU had five guys who could potentially shoot the ball on the floor. Now they've only really got four. And I tout all the time that I think Krivas makes this team's defense. I would rather see Krivas on the floor in this spot than Owaka. Let's watch out BYU's possession here. Saunders walks Chenkov to the basket. He's able to score there. So back on the other end, again, Bradley only crossing the timeline, 23-22. Probing a little bit, not really getting a whole lot of action. Karchenkov tries to drive it. When it comes back to Bradley, there's just not a lot of urgency in these possessions for Arizona. You'd like to be able to get something quicker attacking to the basket. Burries gets trapped over here and again uses one of Arizona's only two timeouts with 3 left on the shot clock. Now, Arizona makes subs here. They bring Koa Pete in, but not replacing Owaka. They're going to go back to a 2 big lineup. And they've got Pete ISO'd in this spot here. If you've watched our video on baseline out of bounds plays, Arizona, essentially, this was a late camera change, but they essentially start with 4 guys in this formation here. Okay. And on the backside, what you're typically going to see is just a back screen flare for Karchenkov, and Burry steps out of the way. Owaka's coming over here, and you're just going to ISO Koa Pete up into this area here. That's what I expected to see. I was a little bit surprised that what you get here is Burry's fighting his way, trying to get over to the ball side. So I'm not sure whether that was an adjustment of whether they kind of wanted to go into that cross type formation and then run it into like a screen the screener action. But Burries wasn't able to get off of Davis and get over to the ball side. So there was no screen from Pete. But now that puts Davis right into Pete's business here. He does A great job. This is one of the things you love about having Koa Pete is even if you don't necessarily love some of those contested mid-range off the dribble jumpers, late in the clock, you need a guy who can get a shot, and you're very confident he's going to be able to get a shot, and he knocks down a big one there. But now you're left with the too big situation again over on the defensive end. And it's Pete again giving up the shot here. Now they're using ball screen action again. You're now at a situation where you have a Waka in for this, right? Be aggressive here. Get up, jump, be aggressive, do something, bring help to the ball. But the guy that's the tagger on the roll man is usually going to come from the weak side. In this case, Karchenkov is there, right? He's not all the way to Keita, but he's going to be able to cover him in this short roll here. This is not Koa Pete's coverage to step over. And you can want to watch. He gets leaning that way just enough. It's really not very much, but he takes that kind of one step over towards the middle of the paint to be able to cover Keita. And here's your kick out here. And this is my chance again to say, if you had Krivas playing in this spot here, maybe you're less worried about the tag. You don't play it as aggressively. This is drop here. Burries should fight harder to go over that screen. You can see he kind of leans into Keita here for a second before you get it. If you're playing this as drop, he can be up, more aggressive on the ball. You don't need tag. You don't need to be worrying about this guy here. But the too big lineup, Pete is late to close, and they give up another three here. Okay, still a 10-point lead, though. Arizona brings the ball up. They're slow bringing it up, get it across the timeline about 23. The first pass doesn't happen in this play till 16 on the shot clock. Not a lot is happening. We're late clock again, Cole Pete. He is able to rise up. He gets Saunders leaning just a little bit, gets just enough contact, and is able to get to the line there. Again, not a great possession from Arizona, and Pete would go to the line, and he actually had 3 attempts due to a violation, missed all 3. So we're still looking at a 10-point game on the next BYU possession. They took a timeout, drew up a play coming out for Saunders, coming up for a 3, and he knocks it down. So let's look at the coverages on this one here. He's going to drop down towards the basket, and then he's coming back up. And you can see Burries here. Again, when you're covering a really good shooter, you just can't lose him for even half a second, a quarter of a second. And that's what's going to happen here is Burries is now ball watching. He knows that Saunders made this first cut, and just for a second, he turns his head, and now Saunders is a step ahead of him here, and he's chasing up across the screen here. And again, I'm going to say Owaka's in the game. Okay, Owaka is going to be up and covering the 3 line. He should have a feel here that Keita might be setting a screen for someone else. He should be up on his side and being able to help here. He never gets turned. He never gets stepped. Burries is chasing. He's late to be able to get there, and no one is able to challenge Saunders there. So now it's a 7-point game, right? And Arizona gets 4 straight free throws from Jaden Bradley to push it back to 11. BYU takes another timeout. You go to the timeout, you can see Coach Lloyd is drawing up what happened last time, right? He's saying last time Saunders came off this screen from the middle over towards the ball side. We don't want to get caught on that same type of play again. So let's go ahead and take a look at what BYU drew up here. A little bit different play. They're trying to get Saunders coming the other way. Instead, it's ball hand back to Debonsa, and they call this foul here. And this is just really disappointing to me. Let's go ahead and go back to the inbound because Arizona does do a better job on this one here. You'll notice that they've made the switch to have Bradley covering Saunders here, maybe a little bit more comfortable that Bradley is going to stay with him here. The design of the play looks fairly similar as far as where our guy's standing. Saunders moves his way down. Bradley's covering it top locked, like he might come back up. So this is a nice little design. Keita sets the screen for Saunders. Bradley does a great job. He's completely locked onto Sanders. That's much better, right? So now they're doing this little toss back for Debonsa to get this switch onto Burries, right? Which makes sense as someone to hunt with Debonsa. I would think Debonsa should get to the basket a little bit more. That's something I picked up in a couple of plays that maybe I didn't show here, where he got advantageous matchups, but still just settled for 3 pointers. This one, he does draw a foul. I'm going to go ahead and put this into a slower motion here, just so we can look at it at like half speed. But I hate this. This is a leg kick. This is an offensive foul. This is not a natural shooting movement. His leg is way out compared to what a normal shooting motion would be. And I just think this is silly that this is a play that you're not able to challenge in college basketball. You're not allowed to challenge any fouls except for restricted arc fouls, and even those not in the last 2 minutes. Those are by review. So there's no fouls in this possession that could have been challenged. I just think that that's a mistake in the NBA. You can challenge these. They're some of the most valuable fouls to challenge. This is not a normal shooting motion. And all that being said, the amount of contact here is just incredibly minimal. I know that if he's going straight up and straight down, Burries is not allowed to get into his landing spot, but that landing spot was abnormal. That should not have been called a foul. Now, Debenza goes to the line. He makes one of the first two. So he's here shooting the third one. And we've got Kopit and Tobe Awaka down here on the baseline. You'd feel pretty good about this rebound. In the end, the Cats do not get the rebound. It gets kicked back around, and they're unable to get to this 3-shooter here. So on Awaka's side, you've got Awaka and Burries, who I believe should be pinching down to try to help Awaka. Karchenkov presumably has shooter here, and Kopit is one-on-one with Saunders. So you watch this shot go up, and already by this point, Burries is behind Kibikeda. He has not effectively pinched on this side, and Pete loses contact with Saunders coming around. So Keda's able to get a hand on this, and Pete is not able to stay with Saunders coming around. So the two bigs not doing a very good job. Burries not doing a very good job at being able to box out there on the free throw. So still a 3-possession game here, right? And Arizona's going to start having trouble getting the ball in, right? We'll go ahead and let these two play out, and then we'll watch some of my thoughts on trying to get the ball in here, right? Archenkov's going to toss this up to Awaka, who ends up getting fouled. So let's go back to the beginning. So Arizona's going to have this first possession here. They line up in this kind of 3-man line. I think that kind of gives Bradley the ability to really kind of cut this off in either direction, to get to either side of the floor, to be able to get this. Kopit is the inbounder here. He's typically the full court inbounder for Arizona. I don't mind that, having a big guy that can see over the defense, be able to make a lot of different passes. As a not great free throw shooter, it also allows you to keep him on the floor with less probability that he's going to be the one that gets fouled. What I'd like to see him do more of, and we'll see this a couple of times here, is this is after a made basket. He can run the baseline here, right? He can move in different directions to change the passing angle. That's something you'll notice that he really doesn't do much, and he's under the basket here. Bradley cuts this way, but the pass is a little bit long, and they're able to deflect it out of bounds. Now, on this next one, the angles are a little bit more tough, and Pete cannot move here. Now, Bradley, I've seen people wanting a foul for this one. Bradley, like, break checks Davis here. I don't really think this is a foul. I think Arizona's kind of got to play through it a little bit. Burries is going to get held maybe twice. And he's trying to play through it, but they get the ball in. But Karchenkov is a 75% free throw shooter, and he brings it into the front court and flips it to Awaka, who is a 66% free throw shooter. You see kind of a little bit of disappointment. He claps his hands there. Awaka would go to the free throw line and split the pair. So it's an 8-point lead as BYU comes back the other way. And they just quick attack, rebound, stick back, and get it here. And this is just way too easy, way too quick, right? As Wright brings up the ball here, right? All the action is to the other side. Awaka's got your coverage on this side. I think you got to try to contain this ball to the left side of the floor. And Burries is just beat so quickly right to the middle of the floor. Yes, people could kind of sink down here, but now you're opening up passing lanes for a kick. Burries does a nice job to not foul in this situation here, but Awaka has kind of looked that way, and Keita gets another rebound. So Awaka's now given up, the best rebounder in the country. Awaka has given up 2 rebounds here, the free throw rebound and this stick back. So Tobe Awaka is now out. The Wildcats subbed Anthony Del Orso in. That's your best free throw shooter, subbing for a weak free throw shooter. So you're kind of assuming that maybe he's going to make this free throw. You want another guy that you could put the ball in his hands and go make free throws on the other end. But you've now got your 2 best rebounders, Awaka and Krivas, out of the game, right? And you've got Karchenkov and Pete down on the baseline there. Karchenkov does a good job. He does get the rebound here, but he's not really securing it. It gets poked loose. He kind of gets to it again, but Debansa is able to take it out of his hands, and Burries tries to give the hard foul there to make sure not to give the basket. This is definitely a good call as a flagrant 1. He's got no part of the ball. He's got a grab and a pull to the ground. So you get the flagrant foul there. BYU, during all of this review, is able to draw up what their next play is going to be. So it's now a 4-point game with 35 seconds left. Both teams made those offensive defensive subs back. So Awaka is back on the floor instead of Del Orso. Again, they're still playing the 2 big lineup rather than having that lineup with Aristode. And this is where Awaka's and Pete are going to do this little switch here. And Pete does a better job of being able to contain. BYU definitely wants that foul there. But Pete does a better job than the clip that we saw earlier. Now, what I would say, as long as we're looking at some of the stuff that Arizona did, we should look at what BYU did on this play as well, right? Arizona's going to have their big man covering the inbounder. And I think having Debansa as the inbounder makes a ton of sense here. But he's now covered by Awaka. The play is drawn to be able to run action between him and Keita, right? That's going to allow this switchback. If you had put someone else in that position to be a pop, like if you switched Boscovich, who's being covered over on the weak side, on the ball side by Burries, maybe you put him in that spot instead of Keita. So that you're switching Burries onto Debansa, or even just clear out this side so when you inbound it, Debansa can go right back to the corner and be ISO'd on Awaka. I would like either of those options more than I would like the option of him coming up into this handoff, because it did allow Koa Pete to get back on there and be able to stay in front there. So a win for the Wildcats on that possession. Burries gets fouled here. He splits these free throws, so now it's a 5-point game coming back the other way. BYU's pushing fast in transition, and they get this, again, very quick take and a basket too quick. You got to make them work for something more here. And again, I've hammered this home in this video. You've decided that you're going to play Awaka here. He needs to be up at the level of the ball. He needs to be up being aggressive. There's no reason for him to be in this like high drop here. And he just gets stuck in absolute no man's land. And it's an empty ball screen over on this side. There's no help coming from this side. If we had to say that there would be help, it would be from Koa Pete on the weak side. But as we just stepped this through, Pete's on the weak side, still there, still there, still there. Never moves at all towards the ball to be able to help on this. This is just way too easy. And now after this dunk, it's a 1-possession game. So Arizona's back to trying to inbound the ball. Pete still can run the baseline. I would really like to see kind of something where Bradley is cutting into this area here. Pete runs this way, runs back this way. You get the inbound right there. And just something clean right there. Now, this is called a foul on Bradley. Pretty questionable. Fran Fraschilla on the broadcast was arguing for the foul on Rob Wright first. I don't really see that either. I think this is a no call, right? I said in the earlier possession, Arizona's got to be tough and fight through a lot of that chan checking, a lot of that holding. But some of that is then you should be able to swim move, right? Okay, there's a hold, there's a swim move. Just let it all go and let's play through it. That's what the way I would like to be able to see this. But again, just as far as watching the Arizona side of things, let's say that this foul hasn't been called, right? Bradley is coming down to this area here. Debansa is covering up towards the middle of the floor. Pete has not moved from the spot that he took the ball at. This is going to be a tough pass over to this side here and kind of into this little troublesome area in this side. And of course, that's going to matter the next time Arizona gets the ball back. So, offensive foul, and they're just going to try to cause a little confusion with the screen with Debansa and Keita. Debansa comes out, gets a look at it there, but Keita is able to get the rebound backside there. Why does that happen? Well, the confusion worked on this side. You've now got Pete and Burries running at shooter here, right? Probably should have just been Burries sticking with Debansa coming off of this one here. Pete can stay with Keita. Awaka tries to get body, definitely gets a lot of body into him there, but he's not able to get all the way in front of him. They're rebounding 4 versus 3, and Keita is able to pick this one up. So the Wildcats go to inbound again here, and I'm going to stop it here. My TV has a glitch, so you're not able to see a whole lot here, but same concern that we just discussed, and we know this turns into a jump ball here, right? Same concern we just talked about here is you're now inbounding into a very troublesome area right here. Got a lot of guys coming to trap, sideline, baseline as extra defenders. Where are you going to get out of this? Would have liked to see, again, similar to what we talked about. Let's go ahead and run this back. Right? Use this loop here. Get over to this open part of the floor. Pete, it's still after a made basket. Can run the floor this way to close the scoring lane, the passing lane, be able to get that passing here. They don't do that. Now, on this catch, there's a lot of action coming. Someone needs to be getting to this spot here, right? And it probably should be Braden Burries in this spot here. His man has left him. Could be Karchenkov too. At least if Karchenkov goes that way, Burries is more open where he's standing. But one of these guys should be cutting up into this open area to be able to get this pass from Jaden Bradley. I'm going to go ahead and run in again. My TV cuts out at this spot here. But when it picks up, you can see the same thing. Both of those guys are still far from the ball and covered. It's really Kostic, who was Karchenkov's man, is now standing over here in front of Burries. And Karchenkov is all the way across the floor with Bradley being triple team, saying, throw it to me all the way over here. So Coach is now up covering both Bradley and Koa Pete in this area here. Karchenkov is not an option. So this is stuff that Arizona certainly will look at and have opportunities to improve upon. But I think, maybe this is stuff you don't catch live. I didn't. It took a rewatch to kind of understand where there was areas that Arizona could improve. Of course, finally, the last possession, Braden Burries is going to kind of save the day here with a really great block. He gets his own rebound and makes 2 free throws on the other end. I'll let it play out. And the question was, Wright was not necessarily having a great game. Why would you go away from Debansa here? So they've got Wright all the way in the backcourt. The idea would be you can throw him the ball with a head of steam. Kevin Young in his post-game press conference said that this play had 2 options, essentially implying that the first action is going to be for Debansa, and it wasn't there. I don't totally see this. I mean, this is a pretty easy play to guess what's going to happen. You get 2 crossers to be able to put Debansa with the ball here, but Arizona's going to switch all of this action. They get Pete covering Debansa over on this side, and then I'm not really sure what was supposed to happen from there. You can see a little bit of confusion. I'll go ahead and stop the tape. The ball comes in to right here. And a nice job, by the way, of Karchenkov and Krivas switching this one back right there so that Krivas is covering Keita here. But I think there's some question from Boscovich and from Debanza what action is supposed to be happening. Bostic is kind of dancing over there in the middle to not bring up a whole lot. And just great reaction by Burries. Once Wright has his back turned to decide to come over on this. And Krivas is a factor here too. And I like having Krivas in at this point in the game with it being a 1-point game and you got to cover up the basket. Again, great switch, Karchenkov and Krivas. Krivas is in the action there. If Burries doesn't get there, Krivas is probably still going to affect this shot. I don't think he's going to block it. But Burries just makes the commitment. His back's to me. He doesn't know I'm coming. I'm going to get this one here. If this is a 2-point game and you're leaving a 3-shooter, maybe you feel a little bit differently about this. But really a great job to be able to go over and get this. So the Wildcats survive. They get a 3-point win in their 3rd game in 6 days on the road at the number 13 team in the country. This is a huge win for the Wildcats. They get a little bit of rest here. They're at ASU this Saturday and then another week off before they really hit the toughest stretch of their season in February. But they get the win here. They move to 21-0 overall and 8-0 in conference, the only undefeated team in the Big 12. All right. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any feedback, be happy to have it. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow my newsletter also at substack.utterhoops.com or follow me on X at utterhoops. Thank you very much. I'll catch you all next time.